Ukraine has shut off the Russian gas tap, that too in the middle of winter. They had a 5-year transit deal with Moscow, a deal that expired by the end of 2024. Kiev had the option of extending the deal last month, but Volodymyr Zelensky said no. He said Russian gas would not be allowed to flow via Ukrainian land. It's a decision that affects all sides. Russia loses money in gas sales, Europe loses energy supplies, and Ukraine loses transit fees. So the question is, who is the bigger loser? First, some facts. Russia has long been the dominant gas supplier to Europe. You have pipelines connecting the two sides. There are pipelines over Ukraine, over Belarus, over the Baltic Sea, and over Turkey. The ones over Ukraine are the most important. Russia's been using them since 1991. Even after the war began, the war in Ukraine, Russian gas flowed through Ukraine. It's a deal that worked for both sides. Ukraine got around $800 million in annual fees, and Russia got a short route to Europe. But Zelensky says no more. He has given up the transit fees to end Russian supplies. And what's the fallout? Well, limited so far. European energy prices are only marginally up. And this is very different from the shock of 2022. Do you know why? Because this time Europe is prepared. In 2021, Russia made up 40% of Europe's gas imports. By 2023, their share had fallen to 8%, which means Europe has diversified. They are buying more gas from other places, from the US and Qatar. Hence the limited impact. But some countries in Eastern Europe will be worried, especially Slovakia. Around 1/3 of their gas comes from Russia. So their prime minister is furious. His name is Robert Fico. He visited Moscow last week and met President Putin. And today he lashed out at Ukraine. He said the move would hurt Europe, not Russia.
The grass always suffers. I do not want Slovakia to be such grass, as we see these days when the transit of gas through Ukraine is stopped, which will have drastic impacts on all of us in the European Union, but not on the Russian Federation.
Putin said the same thing last month. He said Russia is always willing to supply gas, but that Ukraine is politicizing the issue.
We did not terminate the contract. They said that would not extend it. If that's what they want, so be it. They are hand-fed by Europe. Because, like I said, without European support, Ukraine not only is not able to battle, but cannot exist in general. And now, Ukraine punishes Europe by shutting down the transit contracts.
There are two things to note here. Number one, it's a big loss for Russia. They stand to lose $5 billion in gas sales, that too in the middle of a crisis. In 2023, Russia's state-owned Gazprom recorded $7 billion in losses, their first annual loss since 1999. So Putin can downplay this as much as he wants, but it is a setback. That is point number one. Point number two, the impact on Europe will be mixed. Western Europe is not panicking like they did in 2022. They are prepared for this. And Eastern Europe, well, they're concerned, but not panicking yet. Hungary is getting Russian gas from Turkish pipelines. Austria cancelled its Russian deal last month, which basically just leaves Slovakia. So right now, it's not a bloc-wide energy crisis. The only country that's really suffering is Moldova. It's a former Soviet republic that borders Ukraine. They get most of their energy from Russia, but last month Russia cut it off. Moscow says Moldova has racked up $709 million in debt. But Moldova says it's only $8 million. Either way, Russia cut off supplies last month, so Moldova has declared a state of emergency. Thousands are bracing for power cuts and blackouts. It's being called energy blackmail. In 2022, this was Putin's ultimate weapon. He used gas money to bankroll his invasion. He also used it as leverage against Europe. But 3 years later, it's not as effective. Europe has moved away from Russian gas, and Moscow has not been able to find alternative buyers. Unlike oil, you cannot just pack up gas into containers and ship them. You either need direct pipelines to transport gas, or you must convert the gas into liquid form and then ship it. It's very expensive and time-consuming. India, for example, buys a lot of Russian oil, but very little Russian gas. So Putin's energy threats are not as deadly as they used to be. Luckily for him, he's ahead on the battlefield, and with Donald Trump's help, he may not need energy blackmail.